Trump's tariffs may hurt U.S. manufacturers. Hell back down if India stands firm. Observers. President Donald Trump's steep new tariffs on Indian goods have sparked sharp concerns among American manufacturers and policy experts, who warn that the move could ultimately backfire on the United States and damage ties with one of its key global allies. Also see Trump tariffs impact on Indian stock market. Former Republican Governor Chris Sununu said, "I just think that the India one scares U.S. manufacturers the most. I can't tell you why, I'm not a manufacturer, but that's the one I hear the biggest concern about, because they're our ally, this should be the easy one. India is going to be the world player, right?" He added that many countries are already outsourcing to India right now. After Trump's additional tariffs move, India strongly condemned the decision, calling it unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. In a strongly worded statement, the Ministry of External Affairs Maya said the US had recently targeted India's oil imports from Russia, even though New Delhi had clearly articulated its position on the matter. Market analyst David Wu, while talking to CNBC TV, mentioned, if the Indians hold out, they might find that Trump will chicken out. Trump has no appetite for higher oil prices. So the question is whether Modi will play this game of chicken with Trump. Nanan expressing disappointment over US President Donald Trump's decision to impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, raising the total to 50%. NATO advisor F. Chrisley Kaur criticized the move, calling it harmful to bilateral ties. "I want to say that I am extremely disappointed in Donald Trump and this decision. I think placing 50% on India is detrimental to not just trade between the two countries but the overall relation, especially when it has taken a long time to create. I think this is creating a lot of mistrust in the Indian government. I think this is Donald Trump's way of power play," she said. Video on US President Donald Trump slapping an additional 25% tariff on India, raising it to 50%. Advisor to NATO F. Chrisley Kaur says, "I want to say that I am extremely disappointed in Donald Trump and this decision. I think placing 50% on India is pick. Twitter.com askjast0 po press trust of India PTI_news August 7, 2025 Nanan marker expert Sharad Kohli, 2, reacted to Trump's imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, raising the total duty to 50%. He said, "The move by President Trump to impose additional 25% tariffs on India is self-destructive. He doesn't even know the consequences. He is trying to create animosity with such a strong ally. One is the largest democracy. One is the oldest democracy. India and America were natural allies. I think he's forgetting the fact that American people basically depend on India as far as their technology is concerned, as far as their medical sector is concerned. He's alienating himself from the rest of the world." Video Delhi marker expert Sharad Kohli reacts to US President Trump imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, raising the total duty to 50%. He says, "The move by President Trump to impose additional 25% tariffs on India is self-destructive." pic.twitter.com Anib2ZRJV3 Press Trust of India PTI_news August 6, 2025 Nanan according to a senior Israeli government official, a strong consensus exists in Washington that India is a natural and reliable partner for the United States. He told CNN News 18 that the tariff issue is a temporary obstacle. He asserted that while temporary challenges may arise, a shared commitment to each other's success and extensive common interests between Delhi and Washington will allow for these issues to be resolved. It is in the best interests of all parties involved, India, the US, and Israel, to find a swift resolution. Nanan their comments came in the aftermath of President Donald Trump's decision to impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing India's continued imports of Russian oil. The move, which follows a breakdown in trade negotiations, threatens to hit nearly 55% of Indian exports to the US, its largest export market. Effective 21 days from August 7, the new tariff hikes will raise duties on key Indian exports like textiles, footwear, gems, and jewelry to as high as 50%, any of the steepest rates ever levied on a US trade partner. Notably, Trump's executive order does not target China, another major importer of Russian oil, though he later hinted at possible actions against Beijing too. The decision marks a serious downturn in US-India relations, which had warmed earlier this year following a high-profile bilateral summit. Analysts say Trump's tone has since hardened dramatically, with the president recently calling India's economy dead and accusing it of profiting from discounted Russian crude while ignoring the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. India's Ministry of External Affairs called the tariff decision extremely unfortunate, reiterating that Russian oil imports are driven purely by market conditions and the energy needs of its 1.4 billion citizens. India will take all necessary steps to protect its national interests, the ministry added. The timing is significant since Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit China for the first time in over 7 years, a move that could hint at shifting geopolitical priorities as relations with Washington become strained. Meanwhile, the economic repercussions are already visible. The rupee weakened in offshore markets, Indian stock futures dipped, and oil prices ticked up by 1 as the market reacted to the White House's decision and news of a surprise drop in U.S. crude inventories. Trade analysts are warning of a serious blow to Indian exporters. This is a severe setback, said S.C. Ralhan, president of the Federation of Indian Export Organizations. Nearly 55% of our shipments to the U.S. will be affected. The increased duties, he said, leave Indian exporters at a 3,035 disadvantage compared to competitors in Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Japan. With such obnoxious tariff rates, trade between the two nations would be practically dead, said Madhavi Arora, economist at MK Global. Despite the public rhetoric, Indian officials remain hopeful of a diplomatic resolution. One senior government source noted that the 21-day implementation window could be a signal from the White House that it's still open to talks. However, there are currently no plans for a retaliatory tariff or for Modi to visit Washington. Instead, India is exploring domestic relief measures for exporters, including interest subsidies and credit guarantees. Still, economists warn that the impact could ripple across the broader economy, with GDP growth potentially falling below 6% this year. Swipe left for next video. Trump's move follows 5 unsuccessful rounds of trade negotiations, largely stuck over U.S. demands for access to India's agricultural and dairy markets. India's refusal to scale back its record $52 billion in Russian oil imports was the final breaking point. Latest blogs.